Let me tell you a story of the dark and twisted power of the Ouija board, a tool that can wreak havoc on those who dare to play with it. It was a few years ago, back in 1997, when a group of friends, 13 at the time, an age when most of us like to investigate the curiosities of the world around us. They enjoyed getting together, having sleepovers, watching horror movies, read scary stories and scare each other with urban legends. One day, as they were exploring, they stumbled upon the board in the dusty attic of an abandoned, decaying house. Their heart raced with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. They had seen Ouija boards in movies and had a basic understanding of how they worked. They knew the importance of saying goodbye at the end of a seance, a rule often overlooked in horror films. Determined to avoid any mistakes, they told each other, "We need to say goodbye," as they sat down to begin their session, placed the planchette on the Ouija board, and they both rested their fingertips on it. They moved it in a slow, gentle circle and asked, "Is there anyone here who would like to speak with us?" The room fell into an expectant hush. Seconds passed, and the tension in the air grew palpable. Then, the planchette began to move, asking simple questions, and then they asked the name of the person they were talking to. They initially shot a skeptical glance at each other, suspecting that one of them was trying to pull a prank. However, their wide-eyed expression mirrored the surprise. The planchette glided across the board, spelling out the name, Gabriel. They exchanged astonished looks, but continued to communicate with the spirit, who claimed to be a 12-year-old boy. The session felt more like a game than anything else, and the spirit seemed friendly. Laughter and lightheartedness filled the room as they interacted with Gabriel. Suddenly, one of them asked, "Gabriel, how did you die?" At that very moment, a loud crash resounded from the room behind them. Startled, they both jumped from their place and rushed to the source of the noise, but nothing was there. There was something about this board that just wasn't right. They felt it, but they also didn't know anything for sure. Then, the realization hit them like a bolt of lightning. Their failure to say goodbye had left the portal open. They feared that something malevolent might have entered their world during their brief absence. Rushing back to the Ouija board, they tried desperately to move the planchette over the word goodbye, but it was too late. That's when they felt the aura of the board shift. The air became static, like a thunderstorm was brewing, as if the sky turned red. The oracle they used to piece out answers to their questions had moved slowly before. Now it was jerking, almost skimming off the board as it flew to the next letter. They made the mistake of not saying goodbye to the restless spirit they unwittingly summoned during their seance, and now the consequences have caught up with them. Little did they know that this spirit, awakened from its slumber, had grown malevolent, harboring a grudge against the living for disturbing its peace. Now, the consequences of their negligence had come back to haunt them. In a fit of frustration, they screamed and threw the board and planchette away, resolving never to touch it again. They berated each other for playing with it in the first place, and even blamed each other in the heat of the moment, though they weren't truly responsible. Their argument escalated. They left the house, leaving each other alone with their thoughts. They stayed up late that night, keeping busy with work and household chores. When they finally calmed down, it was around 3 in the morning, and exhaustion overtook them. They finally went to bed, convinced that their Ouija board session was behind them. For the next 72 hours, nothing unusual occurred, but the argument still troubled them. They went about their daily routine. However, on the 4th day, things began to take an eerie turn. Objects started to move on their own, and they found their belongings in bizarre places. At first, they dismissed it as forgetfulness, but an unsettling feeling crept over them. Home lost its cozy, comforting atmosphere and became strangely cold and unwelcoming. They made the mistake of not saying goodbye to the restless spirit they unwittingly summoned during their seance, and now the consequences have caught up with them. Little did they know that this spirit, awakened from its slumber, had grown malevolent, harboring a grudge against the living for disturbing its peace. Now, the consequences of their negligence had come back to haunt them. In a fit of frustration, they screamed and threw the board and planchette away, resolving never to touch it again. They berated each other for playing with it in the first place, and even blamed each other in the heat of the moment, though they weren't truly responsible. Their argument escalated. They left the house, leaving each other alone with their thoughts. They stayed up late that night, keeping busy with work and household chores. When they finally calmed down, it was around 3 in the morning, and exhaustion overtook them. They finally went to bed, convinced that their Ouija board session was behind them. For the next few days, nothing unusual occurred, but the argument still troubled them. They went about their daily routine. However, on the second week, things began to take an eerie turn. They had been experiencing strange occurrences in their home, objects out of place, unexplained noises. But it was only in the past days that the activity escalated to new heights. Shadows moved across the walls, whispers echoed in empty rooms, and objects began to fly off shelves as if propelled by an unseen force, and they found their belongings in bizarre places. At first, they dismissed it as forgetfulness, but an unsettling feeling crept over them. Feelings of unease that wouldn't dissipate. They were terrified, feeling as though they were losing their minds. Then, they remembered the Ouija board, and the pieces began to fall into place. This was no mere coincidence, no mere figment of their imagination. This was the work of something more sinister. Growing increasingly paranoid, they decided to meet up and spend the night together to talk about it. They decided to stay up and watch TV to calm their nerves. At 2:37 a.m., they both abruptly sat up, gripped by a sudden unexplained fear. They heard frantic scratching sounds coming from the ceiling. They were terrified, but they knew that the only way to banish this entity was to confront it with courage and summon the strength to drive it out of their lives permanently. The entity was feeding off their fear and desperation. But how does one go about expelling an angry spirit from their home? There are no simple solutions or quick fixes. Some recommend seeking the assistance of a professional exorcist, while others suggest performing a ritual to cleanse the space of negative energy. Whatever the solution, the group of friends understands they must take action before this dark force consumes them entirely. They must be resolute and have faith that they can overcome this terrifying ordeal. Only then can they hope to reclaim their lives and rid themselves of the haunting presence that has taken hold. With a newfound sense of purpose and bravery, they proceeded to confront the ominous presence that had besieged their home. Their sanctuary, once a haven, had transformed into a place of unbearable torment. On that fateful night, as they performed a ritual intended to expel the entity, the spirit fought back with unparalleled fury. Shadows writhed and contorted in defiance, and the very walls of the house seemed to groan in anguish. Their courage wavered, but they pressed on, fueled by their determination to rid themselves of this curse. In a final confrontation, the spirit unleashed its full wrath, hurling objects and unleashing a cacophony of sinister laughter. As the battle reached its zenith, the entity seized hold of the friends, its icy grip like a vice around their souls. Despair filled their hearts as they realized the terrible cost of their endeavor. In an instant, it was over. They found themselves sitting in the dark, haunting silence. The room fell into an eerie stillness, the malevolent entity seemingly vanquished. But they could still hear the faint, mocking whispers in the corners of their minds, a constant reminder that the malevolent spirit was never truly gone. The victory came at a tremendous cost. The group of friends was forever changed. Their once vibrant spirits were shattered, and they were left hollow, lifeless shells, mere shadows of their former selves. The entity had not been defeated, it had merely found a new vessel consuming their very essence. The once brave individuals now drifted through life, haunted by the presence they had sought to banish. The Ouija board had exacted its toll, leaving in its wake shattered lives and souls irrevocably tainted by darkness. This story serves as a chilling testament to the unfathomable power of the Ouija board. a stark reminder of the perilous consequences that can befall those who dare to tamper with forces beyond their comprehension. It is a cautionary tale that echoes through the corridors of time, a grim warning that some doors should never be opened, and some secrets are better left buried in the darkness. Sleep well, but heed the board's ominous message, for a presence may be closer than you think.